What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL Live, joined always by my co-host, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, it's a wonderful day. We get our 53 man roster initial
Yeah,
53 man
definitely,
roster.
definitely.
But yeah, it's been a good day, and we're 2 days closer to me watching the new season of Rings of Power. So I'm super hyped.
Well, there it is. There it is. I don't know, was that's what Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Lord of the
Yep.
Rings of Power. Gotcha. Um, yeah, like we are finally 100% done with preseason. I know Raheem is definitely glad about that. But we got that stuff and more to get into. So, without further ado, as the English language is failing me, let's jump into it. So, all right, let's start with the not like bury the lead a little bit, I guess you could say. We had our final preseason game on Friday, which I was lucky enough to go to. I
I
say lucky enough.
was going to say I don't know if I
I
would use those
say lucky
words.
enough. I had no intentions of going to a preseason game this year, mainly because I thought the tickets were a little pricier than I wanted to pay. Also, you've got the whole idea, like especially after we get the word that Penix gets completely shut down and isn't going to play. That took a lot of wind out of my sails. But I had my daughter and my nephew come up to me and were like, "Hey, are we going to a game this year?" Because we always take them to a preseason game. And I was like, ah, snap. Well, I guess we ought to. And then a fellow YouTube creator, A1 Rock, sent out a fundraiser from I guess the high school he's affiliated with, and got tickets cheap. All that being said, got tickets cheap, right?
Yep.
So, which I'm really glad because my God, that was tough to watch. I
Did you
mean,
guys stay for the entire game?
no. We left. The kids were done probably about midway through the third quarter. And I was like, let me watch this last like offensive drive. It was the first one where John Paddock came in. I
Yeah.
said, let me watch this, and then we'll head out after that. They obviously didn't score. You really could tell like Raheem's thought process because he didn't even have Koo go out there and cook or kick any of the like fourth downs where you would normally kick a field goal. And he was like, nope, let's just go for it. Let's end this game as quick as we can and,
Yep.
keep the clock running.
Hey,
Um,
they get the reps, but yeah, we get to get this game over with as quickly as possible.
right, exactly. And so, with that being said, a 31 to nothing blowout was about what you would expect. And the best play of the game really was Bradley and I's one sack on Mac Jones, which he got paid for with, or he got, his reward was getting cut pretty much the next day. So it's like, thank you for a sack. Here you can go home on Sunday.
Yep. They
Um,
probably they probably gave him the film. Like they actually had it like a roll of film. And they're like, here, we appreciate you. Here's
yep,
the film of your sack in preseason, so you can show that and put it in your portfolio.
that's it. That's it. And so, so that was a forgettable game in that aspect, even for a preseason game. That was forgettable. So now, with that being said, let's get into.
We're not even gonna do ballers and fallers from that game.
No, there was
That ain't
like,
worth it.
I mean, the vast majority of people who played in that game are now looking for a job,
Yep.
which is what we're going to get into, which is um, what I was telling the kids as we were heading out. So before we jump much into that, let's go ahead and jump into chat. Chris starts us off with Sean Payton is still a moron. That is all. Hey, fair enough. Fair enough. He did cut your starting quarterback's favorite preseason target. So there's that.
Maybe he can become one of Kirk Cousins' favorite targets.
Well, right now he looks like he's going to be signing with the Detroit Lions on their practice squad.
Okay.
Um, and that's Tim Patrick is who we're talking about there. He was cut earlier, and when there was rumors about him getting cut or traded, everybody was like, "Hey, that might be a because we did lose a Rondell Moore." So initially, that kind of opens up a void for a wide receiver 4 type position.
Mhm.
Um, and so now everybody's scrambling to fill. I find it funny as a fan base, we scramble to fill or sometimes get latched on to a position that's going to receive 1, 2 targets a game, maybe,
Mhm.
you know. But well, it's make or break if we don't get that guy.
Yep.
um. Anyway, Jerry Bowie says, "What's up? I like the 53 man so far. I was a little disappointed that Natron Brooks didn't make it. There were a few preseason standouts that didn't make the initial 53.
Yep.
So we'll see how all that goes. One of the surprises, and I did see Fred's super chat, but we're going to get to that here in a second. But one of the surprises to me, the initial surprise, was that Tyler Heineke is still on this roster. Did that kind of shock you a little bit?
A little bit. My guess is they're going to try to bring Paddock back into the practice squad. And my guess would be is that Taylor Heineke is they're holding on to him because they feel like if they ever had to get to that far down the bench on the quarterback side, that and realistically they're probably right. He'd probably give them a better chance to win than Paddock would right now.
Yeah.
Paddock
Um,
develops on the practice squad or whatever. But I also think that he's the best available piece of trade bait. Uh,
right,
you know,
which
you
is
know, it
Fred's
just
comment,
yep.
which we appreciate greatly, Fred. He
Appreciate it,
says,
Mister
in
Butts.
my opinion, Taylor gets traded. It'll be interesting, and the reason why I say that is because um, in Cleveland they kept DTR, and so that means Jameis Winston is like out on the market. So to me, as much as we might clown Jameis Winston, he's a better quarterback than Tyler Heineke. Um, and so there are a handful of QBs that are higher in tier, in my opinion, out on the market that you can just pick up on a waiver claim versus having to, trade for Tyler Heineke. This is, I think, a reactionary move at the moment because the emergency, third quarterback now has to be on the 53 man roster.
Mm,
He doesn't count against the game day actives, but last year he could be on the practice squad and you could elevate him each week. This year they went back to making it where he had to be on the 53 man.
gotcha.
So I wonder like how much that plays into Heineke still being on the roster.
Probably a decent amount. But again, like I said, I think they want Paddock to develop. Um, that's assuming he makes it to the practice squad. We think we. I mean, I don't necessarily see any other team just clamoring to get John Paddock, but if we can get him on the practice squad, let him develop there, um, then maybe maybe if that's what happens, then I would assume that's what their thought is they want to try to develop him some, see if he can be a good backup later on, or maybe even good trade bait later on down the road. But for right now, if you're going to be able to trade anybody, it will be probably Heineke, just because he started and won games in the NFL. You say what you want, but he's been able to do that, and that's a good commodity to have.
Right. No, 100%. 100% agree. All right, let's see. The other kind of surprise. Now I agree with Chris. They should have paid me to attend the game.
Yes,
By giving me tickets to another game. That would have been payment enough. Anyway,
agreed.
um, and the other initial surprise that I had with the 53 man or the initial 53 was uh D'Angelo Malone. Tony Wright says D'Angelo Malone made the 53 while playing mostly special teams. Hopefully, he'll learn a couple tricks from Judon because Malone's speed is unblockable. I don't know if it's unblockable. I don't know if I agree there because he was one of the guys who I was watching specifically,
He
just
got
wanting
blocked
him.
pretty good.
Yeah, just wanting him to do something. And like when he was lined up to go after the pass rusher or after the quarterback rather, like it didn't take much for somebody to get in front of him. So I mean, special teams, he's really shown himself there, which special teams matters. So,
It does.
but still, like I said, man, one trick pony, maybe I don't know. You know, like look, there's plenty of guys who were in the league for 10+ years and being only a special teamer. Like
Yep.
Matthew Slater is a name that comes to mind for the Patriots. Um, and so far, really, Cardero Hodge, another guy who made the roster, but mainly made the roster because of his special teams accoutrement. You
Yeah.
know, so
Which
uh,
which like again, if we're looking at this from a surprise perspective, I am surprised we only have 5 wide receivers right now. And I think if let's say we go into week one with this particular starting lineup or this particular roster, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think me and you both agree. I think a lot of people believe this roster will change. Either wide receiver will get added to or something like that. But as it stands right now, I would say even though depending on which one you're looking at, yours is kind of the same as mine. Kadero Hodge shows up as wide receiver 4, so to speak. I think that if we ever got to like a 4 wide scenario, you would probably see Casey Washington over Katero Hodge.
probably because even when he was given the opportunity in um, preseason, like Washington looked better than Hodge did in just the standard wide receiver roles. Um, so another one, we're just gonna keep this roster breakdown up for probably most of this episode. So we're gonna bounce around quite a bit depending on y'all's comments. So Dre says I was surprised they cut Kevin King, but I'm glad they kept Avery Williams as the third running back. I hope and pray King, Brooks, and Carlos Washington, John Fitzpatrick all make the practice squad. There's a lot of guys that got cut that they obviously are going to want back on the practice squad. So we'll see how that turns out. I think tomorrow afternoon is when they can initial or um, can finalize their practice squad.
I'm not sure if Kevin King. I know there's a certain limit to when guy like I don't know if it's years in the league or something like that, but there's a certain limit to a certain point you can no longer be added to a practice squad.
I thought they had
Uh,
changed that rule
Maybe
when
they did.
I don't know if it was a permanent rule
Um,
or if it was a because I thought they changed it to where. So obviously, one of the biggest surprises was Heineke. You get into the running back, as we kind of have been calling it. Jace McClellan took the spot over Carlos Washington. So like whoever, like if it's a neck and neck tie, tends to go to the one who was drafted by that regime or the one that you spent any kind of draft capital on. So you spent draft capital this year on McClellan. So he gets the nod over Washington. As we briefly talked about, only 5 wide receivers, which is interesting considering to this point how much we were in 11 personnel to only be carrying 5 wide receivers when you're going to essentially run out 11 or 3 wide receivers getting a certain a good chunk of snaps. Everybody thought it would be 6. That way you had a backup for every wide receiver. Now, something me and you had talked about before we got on air was how Kyle Pitts I think is going to play a lot in this like 6th or 4th wide receiver room. So we'll see how that plays out. I know as of right now, we have played 11 personnel only second to Pitts. I mean, only second to the Rams as far as preseason is concerned. So, but I do believe that come the regular season, you're going to see a bigger uptick in 12 personnel because of Pitts being on the field.
Yep. I think right now, as it stands, like not in a technical sense, because obviously he's a tight end, but if we're looking at it from a I can't think of the word right now, but the reality is your top three wide receivers are going to be, if we're talking wideouts, not running backs or anything like that, your top three wideouts are going to be Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. Those are going to be your three top wide receiver ish, in the case of Pitts, guys that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when Pitts is out there, he may start in line, but he'll probably motion out to wide or to the slot a lot. I think you put Charlie Warner out there because he's the actual tight end.
Right. Yeah. Chris says Pitts wide receiver 1 or 2.
Two.
He's wide receiver 2 in that aspect. Now, as we're talking about wide receivers, Nick Bungalow says get John Mechie.
That's it. That's if the Texans want to deal him.
Right. The Texans cut or waived, cut, whatever you want to call it, Noah Brown today. So it almost, you kind of seem like maybe that Noah Brown or that John Mechie might still be in their plans. So, but if he's available, he's definitely an upgrade, in the wide receiver room. Because I'm still not really 100% sure what Ray McLeod's going to give you.
I think Ray McLeod is going to give you kind of the same thing that we were probably looking for from
Rondale Moore.
Rondale Moore. Like, he's not going to be a guy he's not going to be a big volume guy. He's going to be a guy that, now he may prove us all wrong and go out and catch like 60, 65, 70 passes. I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't think he's going to be that guy, but
I think at best we're looking at probably somewhere in the 25 to 45 range would be my guess.
Right.
But the hope is that while he's not the volume isn't there, the production per reception is there. He's the speedster. He's the guy you get out in space and let him do his thing out in space.
The Tutu Atwell.
Yep.
Now Cameron Zatt says Hunter Renfrow for vet minimum. I'm really curious why Hunter Renfrow is still out on the market. I think he was out on the market all last season too. I don't think he played anywhere last year. And the longer you are away from being played, the less likely people are going to remember you, so to speak.
Yep.
Especially in that wide receiver position, unless your name is Odell Beckham.
Unless he's just like asking for way too much money. Like,
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Willie Doc with $3. We appreciate you, Willie.
Appreciate you, Doc.
He said he was heading out to play. He'd catch us later, which we always appreciate, Willie.
Absolutely, man. We'll see. We'll see you on the replay, man.
That's right. Dre Murphy says, I was surprised they cut Kevin King. Oh, we already did that, didn't we? Yeah. Let's talk about that Kevin King for a minute. Did you find that to be a surprise cut?
Yes. Because I found it to be a surprise cut because we only kept 5 cornerbacks. Right. I thought we would carry 6. Right. But I think if you look at it, I think the reason why we don't, at least initially, again, this is all initial. This is the first day of the actual 53-man roster. Waiver wires or free agents or trades or whatever can all happen still, and we may pick up some guys. I think potentially another wide receiver, maybe another cornerback. But if we look at it, we're carrying as of right now, we are carrying 9 offensive linemen. Jovan Gwynn made the roster.
Right. I expect this to change maybe.
Right, and then also defensive line, they carried 8. I think that's those two areas right there, the trenches having, because I would expect normally you probably keep probably 7 defensive line, and we all thought Jovan Gwynn would maybe go to the practice squad and then right Ryan Newsel, Kyle Hinton, Storm Norton were your backups from center to guard, or a center all the way out to tackle, right?
Right. And you talk about that defensive line logjam. That brings
Mhm.
up Tony Wright's earlier point of like our 6th round pick. Zion Lodes didn't make it, but hopefully he'll be placed on the practice squad where he can learn from veterans. Like, yeah, it became a logjam.
Yeah.
Um, and it's always interesting when they cut a draft pick, especially one from the class that you just had. Now I know
Well,
it's a 6th round pick, you know.
six, like, and he was the last of the 3 6th round picks too. So he
Exactly.
was essentially a 7th round pick. But like 6th and 7th round picks get cut all the time. I don't worry anything before that. So like maybe a Brandon Dorless, if he had gotten cut, that'd have been like, oh, what are we doing? But
Well, I'll tell you this, that the Ravens game like really made me feel much better about Rook and Dorless.
yes,
Now Dorless had some decent push in the Jags game towards the second half once their starting O line came out, but um, I was interested that Contavious Street, Zach Harrison, and Taquan Graham, like by after the Miami game, they were like, all right, seen enough instant locks.
yep.
Which kind of shocked me a little bit. Um, so we'll see. Fred Butts. I think that's that dog talking in you there, Fred.
I mean, it's very very possible. And I'm not. He might be a beast, but the problem is he more of a beast than
Eddie Goldman or more of a beast.
Onyemata,
Yeah.
than Goldman,
And
than
Contavious
Tavius
Street.
Street? Is he more of a beast than those guys? And as of right now, no, he's not. If we can get him back on the practice squad, exactly what what was said earlier, like now he can get in, he can learn, from Eddie Goldman, he can learn from Onyemata, he can still be with the team and still like develop. And that's a guy that maybe next year he makes it onto the squad, if he does the things that he's supposed to do and progresses like we hope he does. But yeah, he was not making it over those guys.
Right. Um, Interesting here, like JT Bertrand,
Yep.
like made it. I think with Ellis and Landman dealing with groin injuries, that's kind of a no brainer. Even to a point where Bertrand didn't play in the Jags game.
Yep.
So the first 2 games, Bertrand was all over the place. Um, was playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think on the team's website, let's see here. I want to. Sometimes the team will tell you things that you might let's see here, that are just a little interesting sometimes. So I was on the Athletic in their little article, right?
Yep.
So I want to see a difference here. So 3, 4, 5, 3, 9.
They have 9 there.
See, that's what I was. Look, James Smith Williams.
Yep.
They have him. They consider him to be a lineman, a defensive lineman. As to where their outside linebackers are just 4. So when you look at it in that aspect, D'Angelo Malone being a backup to an Ebiketie or a Carter, like if you're saying that, okay, my 2 starting outside linebackers are Judon and Ebiketie, then Carter backs up Judon and Malone backs up Ebiketie. And
Well, I
that
think
makes,
I think it will probably be Judon and Carter starters,
we'll
Ebiketie
see.
and Malone backups.
Right. We'll see. And the reason why I say that is because after the first game, after the Miami game, you didn't see these guys again. So it's really hard to get a bead on exactly how the coaching staff views them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like Ebiketie with these joint practices and scrimmages and all this other stuff, really sounded like he was coming on. Like almost every report we read, oh, Ebiketie guy would have had a sack. Ebiketie would have had a sack. And so I wonder who's the starting outside linebacker, in the out of these two.
Well, do you still have the other roster pulled up?
Yeah. Hmm.
Go back to that one. I want to see outside linebacker. So they have James Smith Williams as an
Right.
outside line, and I think honestly that's where I mean he shows up as defensive line here, but he's not big enough for if we're running a 3-4 style defense. He's not big enough for a defensive line spot. He's only like 250, 260, something like that.
He's
Um,
265.
yeah, that's
He
not big enough for a
Yeah,
three
athletic. Yeah.
four D end.
So so it is it a big deal? No, it's minor, right? It's a minor, but sometimes you can glean a little bit of the tea leaves, so to speak, by how a team designates a player.
Yeah.
So now Antonio Hamilton, after the first Miami game, he didn't play again, did he?
Did
I
he
don't.
not play in Baltimore?
I don't. I don't think he did. Maybe the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Antonio Hamilton played. I almost freaked out because I see Antonio Holloway, and I was like, "Wait a minute." Um,
Yeah.
he says the fact that we're going to have fresh bodies on D line is going to be huge for fresh legs. I agree, and it really does sound like in a you can see some of the DQ influences.
Hold on. I gotta get this out here.
What?
Fred's like Goldman retired twice. Can't trust him.
Look, I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Like I'm waiting until week one. I don't know. Maybe I keep pushing it back. Maybe I should do it now. But I'm gonna have to have like a picture of Eddie Goldman because right now he's made the initial 53. So hold on. Let me see. Let me do something here. Don't need y'all seeing all my stuffs. Like y'all might see something that's like, "Oh, Jr. I can't believe you do this," and I'm like, "Well, I don't know why you can't believe it, because I don't really hide much, nothing." Let's see images. I really wanted one like of him in a Falcons uniform.
Yeah.
I don't really have.
David Breland's like Goldman probably didn't like Arthur Smith.
I don't know if it was Arthur Smith or if it was Ryan Nielsen last year or Dean P. Like I said, for these guys, it makes a real big difference when it's a guy they like and it's a guy they know. And what I mean by that is like we now have the can you not just let me have a big picture?
Nope, you can't have
All right, well, I guess it's gonna have to wait till next week then. I was gonna try to go
it.
ahead and pay up on my bet. But I guess it was yeah, David said it was yeah, it was Arthur. Like I said, our defensive line coach now is or was his defensive line coach in Chicago.
Yeah.
And maybe him and that guy connect real well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all worked for a boss that we didn't like or didn't connect with and worked with somebody who we did connect with.
Right.
And
And unlike us, like unfortunately, sometimes we're in positions where we don't like. We have house bills that we got to pay,
right,
and if we want to be able to pay those bills, we have to take the job, and sometimes we have to take a job that we don't necessarily like either the people we're working with, or the environment we're in, or things of that nature. Eddie Goldman, on the other hand, has made I'm not sure if he's like generational wealthy or anything like that, but he's made plenty of money to where if he doesn't want to go and play for a team because he just doesn't feel like it, like it's not going to hurt him financially.
nope,
So like,
not even a little bit.
nope. So,
Mr. CDX for Life says, "What up, P3?" And chat checking
what
in
up,
from
man?
Maryland. Man, bring me back a crab cake, brother.
Bring back some
uh,
crab legs.
there it is. Um, so yeah, the the idea that Hamilton made it over King is kind of interesting. When they had King playing safety again in the Jags game, and playing it pretty good. He didn't. He didn't get burnt. He wasn't like
Well,
out of place.
he got beat for that one TD, that was again, it was it was a good route, perfect throw, but he was in position. It was just a really good play by the offense.
Right. So I thought to myself, I was like, man, like with the interception that he had, almost two interceptions, and it was just seemed like he was around and making plays. I just figured he was a shoe in. But to only carry like five cornerbacks, that's another, interesting with as much nickel as you're going to play.
Yeah.
Now you're really talking about your one backup. Sure. Now you're not going to have. I don't know. You could just about have a backup for everybody, just about, except for the special teamers. The punter, the kicker, and the long snapper. But
Yeah.
because you're talking about 44 guys to have one backup for everybody out there.
Well, now the other thing that we don't think about is, you know, you have Justin Simmons and Bates back there. I think Justin Simmons is probably, when it comes to actual like coverage, is probably a little bit better. So he's a guy that you could probably stick on, like especially in a zone coverage kind of situation. You could probably stick on some slot guys, and he could probably do okay. And in that scenario, you'd probably have him covering the slot guy. Then you'd probably have Grant, running tight end duty or running back duty or something like that, just in case. Something closer to the line of scrimmage, and then you'd have Jesse Bates doing the deep middle as backup for in case anything busts loose.
Now,
So
well, we got to give Tony his flowers. He did say to all of you, us in chat and several other chats, that Goldman would make the 53-man roster and would be an outstanding backup at nose tackle and ball out when called upon. So far,
the first half of that comment,
that's what I'm
you're
saying. Like
right on.
so far, you've got it. You've got part of it going. He has made the initial 53. I'll still be interested to see if he's there on. Well, I don't know. He's there on opening day. So like, I think if he made the 53, he'll be there on opening day. Now I wonder how many snaps he'll see. Um, let's see. There was something I was going to get to. Okay, how much in the past week do we really um attribute some of these decisions to Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons? You kind of alluded to it earlier with the Simmons, pickup with his coverage ability maybe influenced you on not carrying an extra cornerback because maybe you don't feel like you're going to need it as much. And so my question then becomes, how much does Judon, like his presence, then affect a guy like Bradley and I, and a guy like Damone Harris?
I mean,
With
he,
Judon
he,
in the mix, you probably don't need as much.
well, with Judon in the mix, he's probably a guy that you're playing on. Maybe not three down guy every single series, but he's a guy that you probably play on first and second down more often than a guy like Ebiketie, obviously.
Right.
So that's why I think from a start, if we're looking at starters, I think Judon is on one side. I think, and he's probably going to go over the right tackle. Carter will go over the left tackle, and those will be your starters.
Right.
With Malone and Ebiketie, and probably James Smith Williams being Judon's backup because it's more of a base. He's better against the run, and generally a lot of times a running team generally is better going over the right side, because generally the right tackle is a better run blocker, and just the right side of an offensive line is a lot of the times a better run blocking unit than the left side is in a lot of situations. Not every situation, but that's predominantly, I'd say, a lot of times the right side of an offensive line is where you're getting a lot of your production for running games.
Yep. Jay Black with $2. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Black.
He says, hit that like button, fellas. We would much
Absolutely.
appreciate it. There's 60 of our closest friends in here. If y'all could all hit the like button, that would be awesome.
Absolutely would.
Our buddy
Oh, which makes
A1
me
Forever. This is the gentleman who hooked me up with some preseason tickets. Well, didn't hook me up, but like pointed me towards the cheap link, which we appreciate.
absolutely.
And also,
You could have told me about it. I would have done it too. Jesus.
I did tell you about it within time, so don't even act like it.
No, you didn't.
Whatever, I'll slap you in the forehead. And I'll take this time. I was a couple weeks back. I was on with Smitty and Berto and A1, and we had a guy jump in the chat there who was um, like offering up like some like coffee. His name was like Tropical Sips Coffee was his handle.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the show, he found me on Instagram. Was like, "Hey man, I'd like to send you some samples." And I was like, "Well, I don't really drink coffee." I said, "But you can send them to me. I'll put them in my office, and I'll get honest feedback from people at my office." And so he did. He actually came through. So the honest reports that I've gotten from the people at my office is that it's pretty good coffee. I am not going to sit here and lie to anybody and say that they were like, "Oh man, it's the best thing they've ever tasted," but they were like, "Oh yeah, it's good coffee." So it's tropicalsips.net is the name. I don't even know like what the price range of it is, to be honest with you, because again, not a coffee drinker. But he was nice enough to send samples, so I figure if any of y'all are coffee drinkers and you want to help support a smaller business, go check it out. If the prices are reasonable, I say give them a try. CDX for Life says, P for P, what games y'all hitting up this year? With the arrival of Kirk Cousins, also came with having to pay Kirk Cousins, which apparently they decided need to happen through the ticket prices.
Well, but the thing is like it's not even the official ticket prices. We're talking StubHub, which is like aftermarket, and those prices are through the roof.
Dude, while me and my wife were sitting at the game, I was like, well, let's just look and see. If we wanted to go to like say the Steelers game, backs against the wall, ticket prices up top, backs against concrete was $190 a ticket. That's crazy. Like, good on them for being able to get it. People are excited. First time they've sold out in million plus years or whatever. But I personally, in the year of our Lord 2024, with grocery bill being over $200 a week, I can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't happening. So I looked at just for example, I looked at um the Steelers, and I looked at KC, like maybe deeper in the season when somebody like Carolina or something comes, those tickets might be, but over $150 a ticket is well out of my price range. Now,
Yeah.
if any one of y'all were like, well, pound for pound, we got to get you to a game because we got to have y'all at a live game. First of all, appreciate you. Second of all, Cash App is in the bio. Okay. If you want to do Venmo or anything like that, hit me up on Twitter. I'll send you my Venmo information, and I'll take donations to get me and Jonathan to a game. But with the cost of everything right now, just can't do it. Just can't do it, my friend. I would love to.
Be the first year in a while.
Yeah, if I say
at least gotten whether it was to a practice. Like I will probably not step foot in the bins this year.
Man, I did say like I went to the open practice, and then I went to the I went to the preseason game. That'll probably be about it for me this year. All right, so
well, and with because we heard Raheem came out like after the game last week. Basically, he just came out and said like, "Hey, what we did in preseason this year, that as long as I'm coach, that's pretty much how it's going to be."
Yeah, and I'll say this, that this might be the last one I go to. Be honest with you, because I would like to at least see some of the starters at the beginning of the game. I don't mind. I say that if I can get some more cheap tickets like I did this year, I'll probably go. But yeah, if he don't care, I don't care. Does that make sense? uh,
Yeah.
and he definitely don't care. I
No.
will say it was comical to see him run over to the Jags huddle
Yep.
and help break the because who he went up to like dap up. I didn't realize it to begin with. Uh,
Treadwell.
Trammell, Austin Trammell,
Trammell. Trammell.
and Austin Trammell was with the Rams last year,
Yep.
and so it made sense in that aspect for him
Yep.
to go dap up.
And nobody noticed. They just broke the huddle,
Yeah.
and then Trammell was like,
What?
"Hey."
Right, exactly. So you can definitely tell. Like, I will say this: who knows? Like, and Nick, I kind of agree. Like, let the hype be real. Who knows how this season is really going to play out? But I don't know if you could find a person to say anything bad about Raheem Morris. Now, how does his second stint as a head coach go? Like as a true full-on head coach, not a interim coach,
Yep.
will be interesting. But at least there's like super positive vibes in and around Atlanta for the
Well, I
first
mean,
time in a while.
like whether or not it translates into wins, who knows? But it's been if nothing else, it has been fun to listen to his. I haven't listened to every single one of them, but when I've listened to his press conferences, they're always good. Whenever I've listened to his interviews that he's given outside of like press conferences and things like that, he always seems like a really cool dude to just hang with. Um, like he just seems like just a nice guy.
Right. Right.
And again, whether or not any of this translates into success on Sundays, we'll
We'll
see.
see.
I
We'll
hope
see.
it is because I think like I would like to see good guys like that
You want to see him succeed.
succeed.
Yeah. Like there with a world full of jerks and buttheads and like jackholes, like to see as somebody who is genuinely liked and
Yep.
genuinely well respected. I want to see that person succeed.
Well,
And
as Nick put it, like second time's a charm. Maybe he's our Pete Carroll.
who
You
knows?
know,
Right. Exactly. Pete Carroll, even like Bill Belichick in a sense. Like, some of these second time coaches learn a lot and do well. Speaking, you just missed your promo there, Tropical Sips Coffee. But this was the account that I was talking about.
Yep.
That sent us the coffee. So do me a favor, make sure you put your website where people can get your coffee in the chat so that they can check it out. As I said before, the folks at my office who do drink coffee on a regular basis have pretty good things to say about it. They said it was good coffee. So I definitely shouted you out, and folks definitely go check out Tropical Sips Coffee Company. Millie Mills says, but does it have to be in Super Bowl in order for success? I don't think it has to be Super Bowl in order for success. I
Oh,
bottom barrel,
playoff.
I want double digit wins. I want a winning
I mean,
record.
like
I'm talking about
bottom.
like tiers. Like I like
Right.
a
No,
bottom,
if we're talking bottom barrel,
uh-huh.
the absolute minimum is playoffs. I don't care how you get there. Like I
Oh,
don't care.
okay. I got all right. What I want double digit wins. Like to me, a successful season in my mind says double digit wins. You win the NFC South. You get a playoff game at home.
I mean
That's
I think that's the goal.
right. Like to me, that's
I think that's like if we're talking tiers,
right.
that's the top tier. Anything past that is gravy,
Right.
right? That's the top tier. If we're talking bottom barrel, we're scraping out the dregs, right? If we're doing that, then this season needs to end with the Falcons in the playoffs, whether we're at home or away. Doesn't matter, right? And it doesn't matter if it's double digit wins. Doesn't matter if it's 9 wins, 8 wins. I don't care as long as we're in the playoffs. If we have to do it and win a game at the very end of the season, very last game of the season, and we win that game, and we get into the playoffs with a you know 9-8 record
Mhm.
or 8-9 record, but we're in the playoffs. Okay, like would I prefer double digit wins, winning the South, getting the home
See,
playoff?
okay,
Absolutely.
I I think about like because the scenario that you're painting there is a lot of things like out of our control,
Mhm.
and so when I think about like what I would consider to be bottom tier, successful season, double digit wins. Like one step above that is like double digit wins and in the playoffs, right? Because there's aspects where you're like you could have a really good season, and for whatever reason that year, everybody else has a really good season too, and you find yourself on the outside looking in.
Yep.
Um,
Patriots had that happen to them once. They won 11 games in a 16 game season and still missed the playoffs in the
right,
AFC.
and that's where I'm like, you know, I think, but I do think that if you get double digit wins, 10, 11 games, I think you do win the South. Um, because I think it's going to be a dogfight. Like sitting here today, we haven't taken an actual snap. Kirk Cousins has not lined up for the Falcons in a meaningful game or any kind of game as of yet. And I say that it's going to be, a fight between us and Tampa. I don't necessarily see the Saints as being a major threat because they're installing a new offense just like the Bucks are, just like everybody is in this league. So in Rattler has if you listen to Saints fans right now, they are at where Falcons fans were with Ritter,
Mm-hmm.
and they're basically wanting to bench Derek Carr and go ahead and start Rattler because they feel like he's their future. Which, hey, whatever works for you, right?
Yep.
Uh, but what I'm saying is like it feels like Saints fans have already punted on this season. I think Carolina's going to be better, but I don't think they're going to be um, in a position to really contend for the South.
I mean, it depends on who you're talking to, like on Twitter. you find certain Carolina fans that are just like delusional. Maybe I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you lost your best player in Brian Burns. You're you're hoping that Dan Canellis or Dave Canellis can work his magic yet again with another quarterback in Bryce Young, which I'd say in preseason looked better than he did like pretty much at all last year. Um,
Was he ever
so
play? But again, was he ever playing against starters? We don't like.
I'd have to go back and really like study if he was actually playing against starters or not. Um, but they released Terrence Mitchell, like one of their wide receivers, and already kind of thin wide receiver room. You had Jonathan Mingo, old man Thielen, and then uh Leggett. That's their receiving core.
Yeah.
Uh, King says, "LOL, Panthers gave up Spider. It's over." So it's gonna be interesting, right? Because on paper, this is a more stacked. Yeah, thank you, Dre. It's Terrence Marshall
There
was
you
a
go.
wide
Yeah.
receiver. Um, on paper, the Falcons have like top to bottom a better roster than they did in 2016. Like on paper.
Yes.
So
Well, I
like
mean, Grady Jarrett, he said it what week ago, a couple weeks ago, or something like that.
like
Like he feels like this is one of the best rosters like he's been a part of since he's been in the league. So,
right.
um,
And so that's we're how does that play out? You know what I'm saying? Is it getting to that vaunted like Eagles dream team stratosphere that came out and just fell apart, you know?
mhm.
Like these guys still have to play together. They still have to figure that part out.
Yep. And
So
like I remember back in like the I want maybe it was the late night, like mid to late '90s, maybe even early '90s. I'm trying to remember exactly what year it was, but there was like 2 3 years in a row where the Mets, this is in baseball, the Mets would go out and spend a boatload of money. And one year they went out and got Bobby Bonilla. They went out and got this guy. They went out and got that guy. They just had like, and it was, you know, on paper, this was a dream team club and went out and stunk it up the entire season,
right,
like just really really bad. And but it was like for 3 or 4 seasons that was like, well, this is the year the Mets are going to catch the Braves. This is the year the Mets are, and it just didn't happen. No matter how much they spent, it just didn't come together.
right.
So like that's always a possibility. I think it's less so in football. Like generally, when you get talent and you get not just one guy, right? So if we had just gone out and gotten like if we basically stuck with mostly the guys we got and we were relying on whatever, yeah, we'd still have Jesse Bates. Yeah, we'd still have Grady Jarrett. Yeah, we'd still have Onyemata. But then on the edge, you don't have a guy there. But if you can put the right guys at all these different positions. So now if you look at the defense compared to last year, we have what we believe to be. I mean, yes, he's 32 years old. He's coming off an injury. Everybody was freaking out over the injury, but it's like that was a bicep injury. It's not an Achilles. It's not a knee. It's not anything like that he's coming back from. He's coming back from an arm, a bicep injury here, which we've seen other guys come back from that and be just fine. So, but if he comes back and is playing, it's kind of like with Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins can give us a full season or close to a full season of the kind of play we saw before his injury last year, this is going to be an amazing season, right?
Oh yeah,
Same thing with Judon. If he can give us the same kind of production that he was given New England in the first 4 games before he got injured, and if he can kind of pick up where he left off, then this is going to be an amazing season. But now you have a dog at your edge,
hmm,
that can hopefully open things up for Grady, open things up for Onyemata, open things up for Taquan Graham and Zach Harrison and those guys, and then also Ebiketie, who might be on the opposite side of him, Carter, who might be on the other side of him. All this stuff that he can open up those things. Then you look at the cornerbacks. I think we're good at cornerback one. I think we're good
hmm.
at slot with Alfred. I think cornerback two. I mean, there's so much coaching intelligence from a secondary perspective. If they're saying that Mike Hughes is cornerback two for right now, they're saying this is the best guy. This is the best guy for the job. I'm going to take their word for it. Now he may prove us wrong when he plays on the field. We'll see.
We'll
But
see.
if Mike Hughes, so far as it stands right now, the cornerback situation I think looks fine. I would like to have one more cornerback. I do agree. We probably want to have 6, but that's neither here nor there. The guys we have right now that are the starters, I'm comfortable with. And then also, if we have to bring in Clark Phillips, I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, dude's
Um,
been making plays like all throughout camp.
yep. And then
So
when it comes to the linebacker core, assuming those guys come back from the groin stuff, and if they've been super like cautious with them and letting them heal and everything, I expect them to be fine come week one. But so if they're healthy and ready to go week one, then you're talking about Ellis, Landman, Troy Anderson, and then JD Bertrand. I like that group. And then obviously the safeties. You got probably two of the one of the better safety duos in the entire NFL. So from front to back, this defense has dogs at every level.
yeah,
And when you
and
go
it
ahead,
it quickly went from an area of concern to not an area of concern. Like especially with bringing in somebody like a Judon, and then adding, a Justin Simmons, the two areas that you were like concerned about, like just about evaporated overnight.
yep,
And you add that to what we have seen from, obviously they're showing you great stuff and highlights, but they're not hiding the fact that when Kirk has thrown a pick six or what have you, as far as reports goes. But when you see the connection that, you know, it seems like is growing with Pitts and London and Kirk, and with London and Kirk, um, it really does give you some hope for the QB play that just hasn't been there the past 2 years. And King brings up a good point. He says if Simmons and Justin's do extremely well, who do you give the money to next year? You figured out to give both the money. Like you just signed AJ Terrell, and you do what you got to do to figure it out to keep them there. If you think that this is going to be something that can run for longer.
Yep. And then like that's where next year you're talking about you know uh, doing extensions for some different guys to try to free up some more space so you can sign those guys
Right. I mean,
because
if Pitts does well, you sign him, and maybe you work some of his money in a different way,
yep.
and then you can move some money around as far as yeah, I was about to say, as far as Grady goes, like you could potentially give him an extension and add on void years to spread it out, years that you don't necessarily plan on him actually being on the roster, because it depends on how he comes back from injury. Grady is what, in his early 30s right now.
Yeah, I think he's like
I'm
31.
pulling. Yeah, I'm trying to get it pulled up here. Let's see, he's 31.
Yep.
So, um, like how much longer you think he's going to be here? Another 2-3 years. So maybe you sign him to a 4-year deal or even a 5-year deal and spread out his. You can get creative as far as the cap goes.
Yep.
Same thing with re-signing like a Judon and a Simmons. Like you could spread out their numbers, by adding void years and stuff like that on. So the
Yep.
numbers can be done.
Yeah, and then Drake London, if he comes out and balls out this year, that's another guy that you maybe are looking at either giving him an extension next year, or maybe you just hold off and wait till after next year to get his extension in. And so far, like we seem to have been pretty good with like talking to the agents and letting them know like, hey, we'll take care of your guy. And I expect if Judon comes out and is showing us that he's still the Matt Judon that was in New England, then you'll likely see an extension, in season at some point. Um, and then you'll probably, that'll probably be something to like look at and be like, okay, they're doing this contract in a way so that they can also, and if Justin Simmons continues his good play, then you're looking at, okay, well, we're doing this contract to make way for the contract we want to maybe do with Simmons later on. There's all kinds of stuff that can happen.
Yeah. Now I do find it absolutely hilarious. Somebody brought it up earlier. Oh, it was Millie. Millie Mills says, "Why the f is Penix doing an Amazon Flex ad? He ain't got nothing else to do. He ain't playing in no preseason games. So,
Let that man make
but
his money.
but it is very reminiscent of last year or the year before with Desmond Ritter doing the pizza delivery ads, and everybody brings that back up today because Ritter got cut by the Cardinals.
Yep.
So they're like, well, at least he's got something to fall back on. And so it is ironic that goes about, and then you see a delivery with Michael Penix or doing an ad with Amazon. Uh, let's see here. Hold on. What's King saying? Says, sorry, I got a Game of Thrones moment. All right. Falcons are like the Lannisters and
We always
will
pay our
always pay.
debts.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that resonates with some folks, because are the Lannisters, and weren't they the bad guys?
They are, but that was their. I don't know if it was like the official, but the thing you always heard a Lannister talk about was Lannisters always pay their debts.
Ah, okay.
That's just always
That was
like
their little
something
motto, huh?
from Tyrion to Tywin to it didn't matter who it was. If they were Lannister, they said it at some point in the show.
So Timmy Lannister, he just said it.
He just said it. He said
I
it off
got you.
camera.
He said it off camera. Our buddy Charleston Nash says it's incredible thing about Fontenot, Smith and Company has went from wholesome amount of dead cap to less than $7 million dead cap. The future of team building is what I'm excited for. I will say this: like everybody brought that like graphic got put up or whatever. I think during maybe the Jags game because I didn't see it myself. I've seen pictures. Yes, but Terry Fontenot also created that cap in a sense. Like he's the
Wait,
one that made the decision to like take on that much dead cap at one time.
but it had to be done, right?
I'm not I'm not saying it didn't. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm not trying to get into any kind of
it,
argument.
it,
I'm
it
just
was
saying.
it was a result of the previous regime's moves that had to that in order for us to pivot away from that, we had to go that route. Like at some point, you have to bite the bullet, and we
I don't
did.
know.
We
New
bit the
Orleans
bullet,
still ain't biting it.
but
They
but
are
you
still.
but well, they still ain't biting it. But their defense is going to be good. Is their offense going to be any good? Who knows? Like,
All I know is they got
and
to.
if it's not, then
Let's see here. I'm curious at because as we talked about earlier, when you look at depth charts, teams will kind of tell you how they view players sometimes. And
Taysom Hill is
yeah,
their fullback.
yeah, Taysom Hill is listed as their fullback, which I think is hilarious.
Yep,
And so I'm trying to see, he's got to be one of the highest paid fullbacks.
highest paid fullback in NFL
I'm
history.
trying to see what his where's he at on this list? There he is. Right now, he has a cap hit of $9.1 million with a dead cap of. Sorry. Sorry. Shit. You imagine having a fullback on your roster with a dead cap of $26.9 million?
What? Oh my god! That's it. Obviously, that's if they cut him, right?
Yeah. That's if they cut him. But still.
Which at that point, Taysom Hill, if maybe not him, but his agent pretty much knows like my dude ain't going anywhere. They're not going
No.
to cut him.
No. No. They can't. They couldn't cut him if they wanted to.
No.
And then
But what I'll say is yes, we had all the dead cap a couple years ago, and we got all that money off the books, and and this is what I am liking exactly what Charleston Nash said earlier is I'm liking the the thought process here because we've gone and remade this defense with a couple moves. We only had to restructure one contract. That's where the dead money comes from, right?
right. Yep.
Or a good chunk of it, if not all of it. A good chunk of that dead money comes from that or potential dead money, right? And so at the end of the day, we are in a much better position. Come and this is if what we believe to be true is true, and obviously plans can change depending on how things play out this year, right? If things play out this year to the point where you're in the NFC Championship game and you're really competitive and you're maybe going up against the 49ers or whoever is there in the NFC Championship game and you play that game and it's a close game and you feel like you're just this much away, maybe they move the schedule up for next year. But as it stands right now, a lot of people have said it looks like 2026 is kind of the goal, like to be like we want to be talked about as, we are Super Bowl contenders. Okay, if that's the case, okay, then we're building it to the point where we can get to that point and say, okay, this is the year. We think that we're one, maybe two players away, and we're going to go and we're going to just say F them picks. We're going to say we're going to do exactly what the Rams did, and just be like, okay, we want this guy. Okay, they want a first and a third. Okay, fine. Here's your first and a third. here's a second and a fourth, and and this guy in return or something like that.
Right.
And now we do that. We kind of put the finishing touches on it, and we'll be able to do that, and probably still come out on the other end of that, not being yes, the draft 1 year is going to be like sorry as hell, but
Well, right as
but
it stands right now, we have 4 picks in next year's draft.
yeah, but I
So
mean, I
it'll
get
be interesting to
I
see.
I and if we end up signing Judon and we end up signing Simmons and those guys don't leave, and because if either one of those guys leaves after let's say a successful campaign this year, um, and they're both successful, they're going to go and they're going to sign bigger deals, and we're going to get good compensatory picks for them. So that adds 2 more picks into that. So you go from
Right, and that's the
4 to
reason why I'm not.
6.
Yeah,
So,
I'll
but
say
at the
this:
end of
like
the
King
day,
brings up a point. Well, he's saying not saying Kirk is Brady, but the Bucks when Brady came to them and won a Super Bowl. So are we actually better? It draws parallels. Like you saw, like there's ways to try to build a team. The Rams and the Bucks went the route of signing a veteran to get them over the hump at QB instead of trying to draft one. In the sense of instead of replacing Golf with a draft pick, you replace Golf with Matthew Stafford. And so I do like the idea that I think with Kirk, we are better positioned to go that route. There are some parallels you can draw, but remember, Indy tried that as well with Phillip Rivers and with Matt Ryan, and it blew up in their face. And so far, the Jets have tried it with Aaron Rodgers, and he's played, 4 snaps or whatever it was. So, they have high hopes this year. But if it goes south this year, I would imagine everybody gets, crap canned up in New York. So,
oh yeah,
yeah,
no,
we'll
their expectations are through the roof right now. Understandably, like you go out and you pay the kind of money you pay Aaron Rodgers, that's what's going to happen.
I ain't trying to ruin your dreams. And look, I gotta ask. I don't think now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it was you. I didn't. It wasn't you at the bins that I dapped up was a king. Because if it was, hello again. If not, whoever that gentleman was super nice. I was thinking it was King, but I don't think it. Now that I think more about it, I don't think it was. Um, but yeah, we'll see how
Fred Buzz
the
said, "Damn, 2026, we're winning the thing this year."
hopefully, hopefully. Um, no, it wasn't. Uh, yeah, don't make Fields or Mahomes or Wilson. I don't think we have to worry too much about that. Everything has pretty much looked pretty rough offensively for the Steelers. I hate
Yeah,
to say it, but it really has. Especially considering it looks like they're going to go with Wilson, and I don't think that that's the smarter of the two decisions.
no,
But
he doesn't have the escapability that he used to have. If he was Russell Wilson of like 5, 6, 7 years ago,
right, it would have
then
been
he might cause problems. But here's the thing: even in his heyday, Russell Wilson was never, and this is why he probably clashed with Peyton. So Peyton wants a guy who's like, we're going to run this play. You're going to go back 3 steps, and then when you get to that third step, if that first guy's open, you're getting rid of the ball. If he's not
right.
open, you hitch, go to second guy. If he's open, you throw the ball. And he's very much like anticipation, all this other stuff. Russell Wilson isn't any of that.
Nope.
Okay,
He's going to hold the ball too. Both those guys hold the ball too long.
but
He's going to
but
hold the ball too long, looking for that
yeah,
big shot.
and that's what Russell Wilson built his career on
Yeah, why
was
anybody's shocked by that is
he would suck the first 3.5 quarters of a football game. Had a great defense that would keep them in the game, keep them close, and then at the end of the game, he starts running around in the backfield and doing all kinds of crazy stuff and throwing it up to usually what the hell's that guy's name? He
it
was
was
like
Golden Tate or it was um Tyler Lockett.
Lockett.
Yeah,
Lockett,
Tyler
what
Lockett or
Lockett was his guy because
yeah,
Lockett went somewhere else for a little bit, didn't do shit.
yeah.
You know,
That's what
like
I'm saying. It was
he didn't do anything, and then he came back and he was like Tyler Lockett all over again.
right. It was Tyler Lockett. It was the F it. They're down there somewhere, and I'm gonna throw the ball, and that's what he does. Um, yes, I agree. Wilson is the perfect choice for Week 1, especially with Justin Simmons and uh Jesse Bates back there. All right. King's got a good question. It says, name one person on offense and one on defense who has the most pressure on them this year. Offense, I think, is definitely Kirk Cousins. Like when
Yeah,
you make that move and you get Kirk Cousins, you're doing it with the intentions of making a playoff run. And like he comes in with expectation.
yeah,
And I think that's, who has the most pressure on him because all you've heard all off season is, okay, now all these weapons are going to be able to shine because you have Kirk Cousins.
yep.
And so Kirk Cousins is going to make this guy better and that guy better. So offensively, it's Kirk Cousins. Defensively, my first thought that came to mind
Okay.
was Raheem Morris. I don't know if that's like I don't know if that's rightly put, but that's the first name that come to mind when I said deep when I read defense. Let me think about it a little bit more. What do you got for offensive defense?
I mean, offense, I think, is absolutely the case. I think the only other guy that you could maybe put a little bit onto is actually like McGarry. Like,
Caleb McGarry. Okay.
because I think so. Like right now, it is looked at as Caleb McGarry is the weak link on that offensive line, especially if we're talking about long term, potentially Michael Penix taking over. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever it is, right? A lot of people are like looking at Caleb McGarry and be like, we need to look at who can play right tackle. I actually think like he got better. Yeah, he was better last year
I
in
think
pass
so.
pro. I think he was better, and I think he's between the two tackles, especially. I think he's the better like run
Low
guy.
grading.
Yeah,
Um,
he's definitely that. He is a guy, and he is a mountain of a man. I mean,
oh yeah, big dude.
ginormous. He's definitely one of those. If he gets his hands on you, you're pretty much done. Like, but the problem is sometimes with the speed, things like that, getting his hands on somebody can be a problem. I think he's gotten better, but I think the only other guy outside of Kirk Cousins, and I see Dre Murphy here. You know, he's talking about something else, but I think maybe Pitts might have some pressure on him as well to like let's get back to what we were seeing the rookie. Let's build on the rookie season.
Right, right, right.
I can see that, but I think I agree with you in that I think Kirk Cousins is the guy that has the most. Which when you're the starting quarterback and you're looked at as a good starting quarterback, whether you want to call him elite or not, doesn't really matter. But when you're looked at as a good starting quarterback, like a Kirk Cousins, the pressure is going to be on you to produce.
Right. Yep.
Um,
So do you have anybody that sticks out
on defense,
defensively?
I think potentially on defense, we're looking. I'd say maybe AJ Terrell.
Yeah.
If we're just going with players, he just signs a big deal, second highest in NFL history, all this other stuff. Like honestly, would I like to see more picks? Absolutely. Would I? But at the end of the day, if he comes out and balls out and is just a really really good quarterback that can take away a guy when needed, then that's really all I ask of a cornerback. You know, get the occasional interception, but just being able to shut a guy down. If he can do that more often than not, then I think that's money well spent. But I think potentially, like he might be the guy that has the most like pressure on him right
Right. Yeah. Um, I think that and AJ with his big contract. But yeah, outside of AJ, I don't really see like maybe Jesse Bates to like produce again. Like that's 6 interceptions was like I don't know if you're gonna do that again.
now. No, I mean
You
He's not
know,
going to do 6 interceptions every single year, but I think like the guy so far in his entire career has done nothing but produce.
right?
Like it's not
That's
like
like
he's had.
same thing with Simmons. Like
Yeah,
the so I would think single player, maybe AJ Terrell, maybe it's self-imposed pressure of Matthew Judon wanting to prove that he still has it, kind of deal.
yeah,
But as far as like the person that I'm putting pressure on defensively would be either Raheem or like Jimmy Lake. Like you had a pretty decent defense last year. What can we do to make it even better? You know, Charleston says like he asks how much do you think Judon improves McGarry? This will be the first time in McGarry's career he's had a consistent pass rusher to really challenge him even in practice. So maybe that helps. Who knows?
yeah.
Um,
And I think Judon will go up against. I think that's where Judon will go most times is will be the right tackle, especially majority of the league is right-handed as far as quarterbacks go. If
right,
if we run across a left-handed quarterback, then he may go to the left tackle spot because then you would have you probably wouldn't have your best pass blocker on that side. You probably have your best pass blocker on the right side. So he might flip in that scenario. But Judon seems like he is almost always on the right tackle,
right.
at least in a lot of the videos that I've seen of
Agreed. All right then. Well, I think that's going to just about wrap it up for us, I believe.
him.
Unless we're going to start running in circles. You want to run in circles?
We can run in circles. But no, like, um, okay. Well, I do have one question.
Yeah.
Um, when we get to the end of the season, um, who on this defensive line do you think we're going to look back at and be like, that dude? But two things. That dude had a great year,
Okay.
and then the other side of that is, um, man, just didn't pan out for him. Like, who do we think is going to be the when it comes to the defensive line? Who's going to be like the standout, and
Okay.
then who's going to be the disappointment?
I think, I hate to say it, but I think Ebiketie might be the disappointment.
Mhm.
Um, like we're expecting a lot, even with bringing Judon in. You're still expecting Ebiketie to, you know, continue to produce, or take that next step and go from a 6 sack guy to a 8 9 sack guy. Now you have a bona fide running partner in Judon that wins in a similar way. I keep wanting to stress that because last year we did have Calais and Bud, but I think a full healthy year of Judon is better than Calais and Bud.
Yeah,
So with that being said, like it's time to like put up or shut up in that sense. And I think the guy who has a better year than expected is, I think I want to go with Tony right here. Like I think Zach Harrison like proves to be a much better defensive lineman. Like I think by the end of the year we may not even be talking about Taquan Graham. You know,
essentially.
so I'm gonna say Ebiketie is the disappointment and Harrison is the like okay man. He had a slamming year. So what do you think?
Um, I think I'm in agreement on the disappointment. I think Ebiketie has the highest chance,
Right.
just because
I still think he's going to do good,
yeah,
but
I think we may end up in kind of the same spot production wise with him next by the end of the year. He might have another 1 or 2 sacks maybe, um, because I like honestly I'm not sure that he's gonna get quite as much run as we think he probably as maybe we thought early on.
mhm,
Simply because he's just not a from a edge setting perspective, he's just not that guy.
right. Yep,
Um,
I think he's a Yannick Ngakoue but not the high upside. Like
Right.
the really good years of Ngakoue were 12 and 13 sacks. I think the really good years of Ebiketie are going to be 9, 10 sacks. Kind of or Yannick.
And not now if he gets to double digits, I'm not going to call that a disappointment.
No,
If he gets to double
and if he
digits,
settles into I won't call it a disappointment. But did you see? Fred wants to know: did we see where Arthur wants to score 40 on us?
yeah,
I didn't look at that.
I remember you actually tweeted this right when that came out. Your response to that was like, buddy, just try to get to 30 first.
Yeah, right.
See if you can
Just
get
try
there.
to get the. I didn't actually read the quote, but part of me wants to say I'm sure that was in his dry humor, like dealing with the media sarcasm kind of way.
Yeah.
Probably if I were to actually listen to the way he said it, it was probably a offhanded. Oh yeah, we're gonna score 40. But if he's serious that he wants to score 40, yeah, he just needs to work on getting to 30 first because he didn't do that at all last year with that team or with our team. And I don't think his Steelers team, they don't have the offensive line that we have. I think our running backs are better. Najee Harris in name, but I think um, Bijan and Tyler are a better combo. And he's still out there drawing up plays for Cordell Patterson in the preseason. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
um, I don't. Yeah, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, like Arthur Smith, like I said, he needs to get. Let's get to 30
yeah,
on
he
a
needs to
on a
work
on a
on.
on a not even consistent basis. Just make it there one
Like,
time.
yeah,
You didn't do it in 3 years.
yeah. So, all right, folks. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. As always, you can follow me on Grim on Twitter at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan,
You find me at Jonathan M. Holder. Come by and say hi.
keep your eye on the channel because who knows? I'll throw out a truck thought every now and again, and um, it's so funny. Like truck thought videos, get some of the most comments, but like the least amount of engagement. So it's really odd and funny to figure out if like the people like it, but the algorithm doesn't. So I don't know. It's an odd thing. But when I have them, when I think about it, I'll throw it up there. So we got a 2 week dead period before our first game. So
Yep.
we might take a break, might not. Just all depends. So we'll see
See
what.
if there's any like significant moves made with the roster.
Right.
Maybe we'll jump in here and talk about that. If things are pretty quiet on the home front and the roster as it stands kind of sits and stands, maybe we don't.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? But for seasons coming up, and with the season will come definitely 100% weekly videos. So we appreciate y'all, and as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.